what's amazing about dance is that it's so connected to everybody because everybody has a body.
As likely to work with Radiohead as the Royal Ballet, at his best, Wayne McGregor's choreography fuses dance, philosophy, science and art.
Lovely. Wow, that's lovely.
Not bad for a boy from Stockport who found early inspiration in disco.
What was it about John Travolta that got you into this whole thing?
I think it was just his passion for dancing, right? He just kind of came alive on that dance floor, and you see this kind of like this physical kind of vitality, and I think it's just amazing when you see somebody kind of live out their passion. So I started ballroom dancing lessons, disco lessons then in the 70s, and just went on from there.
Do you think anyone can dance?
Everyone can dance, everyone does dance. Some people like to dance when no one's looking, and that's fine, right? But I think what's interesting is that everybody has a personal physical signature. So when I came in the room and met you today, I already had a sense of something about you, the way in which you greeted me, the way in which you had eye contact, the way in which your body orientation was in relation to me, how far or how distant you started to communicate, actually how was that transaction of energy. And in a way, choreography or dance making is about that, it's about a transaction of energy. There's just something primal about our ideas of physicality that just rests inside us.
A one-time research fellow at Cambridge University, McGregor's fascination with science and technology has seen him collaborate with neuro and cognitive scientists and psychologists to understand more about how mind and body interact and what that means for the creative process.
It's partly just a fascination with what's happening cognitively when you're moving. You know, in the olden days we had this kind of like, this idea that the brain and the body were totally disconnected, you know, this kind of sense that we're all just walking heads, walking brains. But actually we know this because of embodied technology and the ways in which we're using technology now, that actually the whole thing is connected. And I was just interested to find out more about that. What does it mean to physically think about something? What is physical thinking? And we do it all the time. If I'm about to reach and touch your shoulder, already I've got a sense of how far I have to reach before I touch you, what kind of velocity I would need. All those things are happening intuitively in my brain before I do it. And that's a version of physical thinking. And what we're doing as dancers, is doing a more expert version of that.
A decade into his role as resident choreographer at London's Royal Ballet, McGregor's rehearsing a revival of his Wolf works, based on the writings of Virginia Woolf.
Yeah.
What are those sounds? Yeah, what is Tian, Chan, Che, Bang?
If I said to you now, if I went, okay, wah, what does that feel? There we go, you do it, right? You do it, you instinctively do it. You already have a kind of a kinesthetic response from that. So that sonification, that sense of sound shapes a dynamic. And my job in a way is to recognise what that special signature is, what that feel is, and then use it to develop something which says something about our idea and says something about you. Nice, guys.
What are you trying to say about the world? Are you trying to sort of make sense of our world?
Well, I think I'm trying to say that the world isn't complete. You know, it's not tied up with a bow, that it's partial view, it's fragmented. Ballet and dance isn't one thing. There are no rules, like literally no rules. So,
although lots of those old-fashioned traditional ballet people might think there are.
They can keep thinking there are, but why would there be? There are no rules, and we don't want an art form that's dying. We want an art form that's really vibrant and alive and open to new discoveries.
Are you political? I mean, are there issues that you care about?
I think I am political. I mean, I think making art is political in itself. You know, education is political. Empowering people to think creatively and challenge the system is political. This is one of the big challenges of this STEM argument, you know, this reduction of arts education in schools, that actually it's really important, first of all, to get those young people in school. And one of the drivers to get them into school is often arts activities. And then to see the crosstalk between maths and music, super clear correlation, rhythm and mathematics, organisation, spatial organisation, really important in terms of geometry. You know, there's so many ways in which these disciplines crosstalk.
In his quest for crosstalk, McGregor's collaborated with a host of musicians and artists, from Mark Wallinger and the White Stripes to Mark Ronson, Paloma Faith and Radiohead's Tom York.
He's a phenomenal dancer, right? So and he has an amazing ability to be really real and just to be himself, and that's why you get this amazing kind of just raw physicality. And I guess when you're working with somebody like that, my job is to recognise it, find it, and just help it on its way. It's not to go, well, let's move like this.
And the Chemical Brothers video?
That's just a totally different process, because the technological process of that is, you know, very different. And
that pushes some of your buttons, doesn't it?
It certainly does. And it was one shot, you probably noticed.
Yeah,
so the camera shot is 4.5 minutes, and then that really, really long kind of technological process afterwards.
Please join me in welcoming the lovely ladies of the Beauxbatons Academy.
Then there are the films.
And their headmistress, Madame Maxine.
As movement director on this Harry Potter, the choreography element is obvious. But there's a McGregor signature to Alexander Skarsgård's performance in The Legend of Tarzan, if you look carefully. And his latest endeavour was Fantastic Beasts.
If you're working on something like the Obscurus in Fantastic Beasts, how can you make some physical activity that then is motion capture, then becomes animation? But it's also about characterization and finding small physical detail. And so there's a huge amount of choreographers, really brilliant choreographers who are working in film, or movement directors in film who are doing this all the time. What we do physically and cognitively, we get into habits, and we live our life in a very habit-formed way. I think, you know, to remain curious and open to the world, you really have to actively change something about yourself. And whether that's watching kinds of films that you never normally watch, whether that's going to a gig that you wouldn't normally go to, whether that's watching dance in a way that you wouldn't, whether that's picking up poetry, it doesn't really matter. And I think that keeps you really engaged and alive, and all of your senses completely attuned. And I think that's what we always want in life, right? To be highly attuned.